Hello everybody and welcome to week number 2 of the Virtual Tour de France preview. And as you can see, I've been sent out to France. I am on the ground at the brand new courses set up by Zwift. We're going to be checking out the profiles of the courses coming up shortly. But first, I just want to say a huge thank you to my friends at Wahoo for making this possible. Virtual racing is revolutionizing the sport of cycling as we know it. Ride the revolution on the Wahoo indoor cycling ecosystem of products. And if that doesn't whet your appetite to buy some Wahoo products, I don't know what will. Link is down in the description. Tell them Pritch sent you. Coming up in today's show, I'm going to be speaking to Wahoo employee and ex-professional cyclist Ian Boswell. Not only are we going to be talking about the brand new courses that we've seen on Zwift, but we're also going to be talking team tactics, and I'm going to get his predictions of who he thinks is going to be at the sharp end come the end of stages 3 and 4 in both the men's and the women's. As well as that, we're going to take an exclusive look at those 2 brand new courses on Zwift that the riders are going to be racing this weekend. But first up, let's take a quick look at those standings coming into stages 3 and 4. In the women's race for general classification, it's Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank heading the leaderboard with drops in second place. Third is Canyon SRAM Racing. Bowles Dolmans cycling team are in 4th, CCC Live in 5th, Rally Cycling 6th, 2020 in 7th, WNT Pro Cycling team are in 8th, 9th are FDJ, and rounding out that top 10 is Trek Segafredo. In the men's hunt for that overall general classification win at the Virtual Tour de France, it's NTT Pro Cycling leading the way. Second place, Rally Cycling. Alpecin Fenix are in 3rd. Trek Segafredo having a slightly better time in the men's race in 4th. Israel Startup Nation 5th. CCC in 6th. 7th is EF Pro Cycling. Cofidis actually doing something for once in 8th. Team Ineos in 9th. And Mitchelton Scott rounding out that top 10 in 10th place. Only 1 point behind Team Ineos. And with 50 points up for grabs for a stage win, it's all still to play for. So probably the most exciting part of this weekend's race is actually seeing these brand new roads here in France. I've tested them a couple of days ago and now I'm going to bring you the preview and let you have a look, probably for the first time, at what these courses have to offer. So Saturday's stage number 3 is the RGV. This is a relatively flat stage. It's almost pan flat really. 24 kilometres, 133.3 metres of climbing. We've got 2 sprint points, one at the Pavé sprint and we've also got one at the Ballon sprint. There's also points up for grabs in the mountain classification as the riders negotiate their way over the Aqueduct Kom. It's only 400 metres of climbing at an average gradient of 5%, so it shouldn't really put anyone into trouble, and anybody that does get dropped off should be able to pick that pace back up along the flat road running into the finish. But as you can see from this video here, so we head through this little village here past the cathedral, I think, I don't know, but then we're heading out towards the sea. You can see the lighthouse over in the distance to the left hand side, and the road makes its way around these flat French roads. Nothing too exciting to grab your attention, so hopefully the riders will be keeping focused on the task at hand, making sure they're staying in that blob, in that bunch, in that peloton, and making sure no rider gets away. But really, honestly, on a race course like this, I highly doubt anybody is going to be making a breakaway for it. So more trees, more grass, more winding roads, a few sunflowers. This is, oh, I tell you what, I feel like I'm in France. Traditional France here, riding the cobbles as we head under the sprint banner there. Loads of bunting out, loads of support out for these riders, hopefully plenty of cheers as well. So out of this village we'll now start heading towards the next point of interest, which is the Aqueduct Kom. Heading up this hill here, I say a hill, I use that term very loosely, hillock. None of the riders are going to lose any sleep over this, are they? So it really is essentially just up and over a bridge, that Kom. Over the little lake. And then it's about the same distance from the first sprint banner to the Kom as it is from the Kom to the second sprint banner. And we're heading there just now through these gates. And there's the sprint point there. And that's not actually that far away from the finish line, so maybe that is going to initiate a breakaway or some action that's going to see the peloton being ripped to pieces. Because from there, like I say, it's going to be full gas all the way to the finish. Teams ramping up their speed, riders sacrificing themselves at the front for their team leaders, and yeah, it's going to be a tight run into the finish. It gets very, very squiggly as we head towards the finish. Watch this. Around these tight right and left-handers. If this was real and physics were real, there'd be no way I could get around these corners at this speed. God bless Zwift physics. You're just traversing the delta that heads from the sea to the inner sanctums of France. I think that's what you call them, deltas. I could be wrong, but whatever. So once the avatars have negotiated these twisty little turns, you come out here to a bit of a dog leg. There's another sprint point there. We hang a right here, and then it's going to kick to the left, and just before the left hand is the finish line just there. Bosh! That is the brand new RGV course on Zwift. So stage number 4 takes in exactly the same route as before, straight through the aqueduct, almost past the second sprint, but here, just through this village, we're going to hang a left, and this is the start of the KOM. So very similar in terms of approach. Here's where the KOM starts. This one is slightly longer. This KOM here, according to this screenshot here, it says it's 26.4 kilometers, average gradient 4%. I don't think that's the case when the route is only 22.9 kilometers. And it also says, look, the pavé sprint there is 3.8 meters. Something's amiss there. So maybe it's 2.6 kilometers in length, this climb. Petit KOM. You can't imagine it being much more than that, to be fair. Climbing at an average gradient of 4%. Is it going to be enough to disrupt the pattern of the blob? Are people going to be able to put in attacks that are going to see them get to the finish? In a normal race, hey, I'd say there's a high chance, there's a good probability of that happening. But in a Zwift race, I just don't think so. I think, like I've said before in the past, it's going to be more of a war of attrition. The fact that riders are just going to be getting dropped off the bike rather than people actually going out the front and attacking. It's just going to be a ramp up in pressure, and people who are strong enough, they're going to be able to stick it out and stay there. But those not quite strong enough are just going to be pinged out the bike. So you're going to see a group coming into the finish, no doubt. It won't be ones or twos going on solo efforts. It's going to come down to, it'll certainly come down to a bunch sprint, but how many people will be in that sprint towards the end? My money's on a group of 12 that are going to make it to the finish. I think you're going to get one or two just dropping off the descent here on their own, but once we hit that flat, I think everyone will come back together. A couple of people might take it a little bit easier on here, trying to save their legs. Other people who have just been dropped off a little bit might be trying to push through, and if they can catch the guys who are resting off guard, potentially they could then go and put in a bit of a counter-attack and go off the front themselves. But we're certainly in for some racing, that's for sure. Definitely going to be racing. So there you have it, a bit of an exclusive look at the brand new courses coming to Zwift, and fingers crossed we're going to be able to ride them on a regular basis very, very soon indeed. Now, earlier today I spoke to ex-professional cyclist Ian Boswell to get his take on virtual racing as a whole, who he thinks is going to be taking victory this weekend, and who he thinks is going to be taking the general classification overall at the end of the Virtual Tour de France. Over to you, Pritchard and Bos. Ian Boswell, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today. First question I want to ask you, as an ex-professional, what is your opinion of virtual racing? Does it have a place in the sport?
Definitely. I was very skeptical of virtual racing when I first kind of switched onto it, and I jumped in a couple e-races and just got completely smoked. But as I've kind of learned more about it, and that there is really a lot of strategy to virtual racing that, is different than road racing. There's definitely a place for it. And, it definitely can complement, real racing outside. And I think as time goes on, you've seen some people specialize in virtual racing. I think it's awesome to see that, you have this, specific group of world tour riders, and you have a specific group of virtual racers, and, they have both a master of kind of their own domain, but yet you're seeing maybe someone who's not necessarily professional on the road is then beating, some world tour riders virtually, because it is a different platform. And I think that they really complement each other as well.
And how are your Zwifting skills? Are you pretty adept at it?
I've learned a lot. You know, I spoke with one of my good friends, Larry Warbass, got really into it during lockdown up in Michigan. So he was telling me all sorts of things and reading articles, and he like went out and bought all these fans and, you know, special, you know, all the little gear to make sure he had like the optimal setup. Because there is, I mean, if you just jump in and you know, maybe you have a threshold of, you know, 6 watts a kilo, but that doesn't mean anything in virtual racing, because you have to know that you got to be at the start line early. You got to, you know, start with a big sprint. And then, you know, you see the finishes of these races as well. It's really hard to kind of break away and go solo. So I've gotten better. I did jump in a little 5K Zwift race last week.
Nice.
I think it was the Italian time trial. And yeah, I attacked and I was off the front like just before the sprint, but I had seen the little finish line up in the top corner. And I thought that was the KOM finish and not the finish of the race. And then, you know, I don't know, 50 meters to go, everyone came sprinting past me. I was like, what the heck's going on? And then I realized that, I misjudged my finish. So it takes a lot more kind of research and, you know, digging into it than you would think.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you think to the virtual Tour de France? Like when I heard the news, I was kind of a bit skeptical about it. I wasn't too sure exactly what the format was going to be. Obviously, we saw the stages last week. Did you get a chance to watch it, and what did you think to it?
I did, yeah. I watched, you know, a bit of both Saturday and Sunday, and it's cool. You know, it's really interesting to see how, you know, and there's definitely specific teams that have put more time and energy into the racing. You know, you see, you know, surprisingly, I've been working with the rally team here in North America to get them set up with Wahoo products. And, you know, they've really invested time and energy into learning how to race virtually. And same with UC NTT, you know, they're, you know, associated with Zwift. So they have definitely kind of mastered that platform. And it's interesting, you know, you're seeing different riders who maybe wouldn't win a stage outside actually coming to the front and winning stages because they know the game. And at the end of the day, it is a game. You know, you're powered by your physiological ability, but still you really have to know how to play the game.
Yeah, I think a lot of pros have probably just gone into it thinking, I'm a professional rider. There's no skill involved in this. All I've got to do is smash the pedals. But once you actually start to learn the little nuances of a Zwift race, for instance, how hard the start is, like when you watched last week's stage 2, before they'd even got off the pier, there were riders going out the back. And I bet a lot of them just weren't prepared for that. And they were kind of expecting this whole neutral rollout, nice and steady build into it. But with an hour of racing, it's just full gas from the start, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think a lot of people can get frustrated. And that's how I felt initially when I did my first virtual races. I just felt frustrated because, you know, it started from the beginning. I thought like, you know, here I am, you know, even last year when I was still racing the world tour, like, you know, I'm, you know, in the top, you know, percentage of, you know, riders in the world. And here I am, you know, jumping into an A race, just getting completely smoked from the beginning. But I just didn't know the platform. You know, I didn't realize that there's this incredibly intense, you know, first, you know, minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then it kind of settles in and there's a race at the end. You know, my tactic was like, oh, I'm just gonna like, you know, just cruise and then attack on the climb, but it doesn't work that way. And so you really do need to know how the game is played.
So what do you think the tactics are going to be for stage 3 and 4? I've previewed them earlier, and stage 3 is what you would consider a completely flat stage, which I can't help thinking is going to come down to a bunch sprint. But stage 4 might be interesting with that final little climb. It's not the biggest or the hardest climb we will see at the Virtual Tour de France, but it certainly could potentially rip it apart and split it up.
Yeah, man, and that's the thing is like, you know, once you do get on a climb like that, there is, you know, then the watts per kilo do really come into play. You know, again, it's, you know, can you kind of manage your effort, you know, really saving your energy in the wheels. And one thing that I found interesting in just watching the virtual racing is, you know, I think a few teams are using like Discord to actually communicate with each other. But you can't talk to people. You know, if you know, a rider from four different riders go up the road, they can't communicate to each other and say, hey, you know, maybe like, you know, if you give me the KOM points, you know, I'll help you to the finish. Like all that aspect of road racing is gone. You know, all of a sudden you're off the front with, and you have no idea if that person's about to blow up, if they're feeling good. And that's something it's really just changed kind of the dynamics of racing, because, you know, there's so many internal conversations and kind of internal, you know, how you're reading the race and how you can, you know, see a rider, maybe they start, you know, rocking on their bike more and you can tell, oh, they're about to blow. Maybe I need them to get over this climb with me to help me to the finish, or maybe, you know, maybe I don't want to take this person to the finish. And when it comes to virtual racing, because you're not there next to each other, you can't see that. So, yeah, I mean, someone could, you know, on stage 4 in particular, could go away on the climb with a small group, but then again, you know, you don't know how the other person's feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's take a quick look at the start list for the men's race. We've not got stage 4 through yet, but unless you have, but taking a look at this, now I don't know if Team Ineos have paid any attention whatsoever to the parkour of stage number 3, but they have current Tour de France champion Egan Bernal in there. Do you think he's capable of doing anything on such a flat, short race?
Yeah, there was a couple. I looked through the start lists, and I think maybe I did see stage 4 start list.
Oh, did you?
But they definitely think I think some teams made a mistake there because they put some of the climbers in on stage 3 and maybe some of the the bigger riders in on stage 4. Do I think Egan can win stage 3? To be honest, no. I don't think he can. But I mean, who knows? That virtual racing, it's something that we're still very much exploring, and who knows, it doesn't necessarily favor someone who would maybe be a sprinter on the road, could potentially win a sprint stage in a virtual race. So it has changed the dynamic of it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you kind of when you see a flat sprint stage out in the real world, you look at the likes of Elia Viviani, Nasser Bouhanni's in there as well, and you just automatically go straight to those sprinters. But like you say, because of the short nature of a Zwift race, because there's lots of people there with varying different abilities of Zwifting, it is literally wide open and anybody could take it. Who would your money be on though? If you had to put your money on somebody for stage 3 and stage 4, who would you say?
I think so for stage 3, the people that I had kind of earmarked, a couple NTT riders again, I think is Bosenhagen racing on stage 3.
Yes. Yeah,
and Ryan Gibbons. So both of those, just because I don't say the advantage, but maybe just the know-how of the game for those NTT riders. And then an outside pick because, Rally, they have been up there, they're in the mix. So John Murphy, he's a sprinter that a lot of the, foreign riders may not know, but living in North America and having raced with him a lot, he could be a rider that, could be a surprise win. And that team in particular has put a lot of effort into this race because, for them, it's a huge opportunity to be a pro continental team here in North America racing in the virtual tour. Yeah,
definitely. Heading over to the women's, I've got the women's up here. Stage 3. So exactly the same parkour for the men as it is for the women. Are we going to see the same women that we saw last week around Watopia? Kristen Faulkner, Alice Barnes, she's racing for the first time, and I think she's going to go pretty well. And then talking of rally, Megan Jastrap's in there as well, who I think might be the pick for stage 3.
Yeah, those are kind of the names actually that I had earmarked as well. I guess another name I would potentially throw in there would be Chloe Dygert. Maybe she could throw in something a bit, kind of a long range move. But again, the Canyon SRAM team, they have the advantage of knowing the platform really well. Yes, Alice Barnes is, raced virtually for a while now. So it's, once again, I think just really knowing that platform and, those teams that may be using some sort of, communication between them to talk and make a tactic because, someone needs to pull the peloton along.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah. That could be all the difference. Just simply being able to chat to each other and communicate with each other. But hopefully after what's happened over stage 1 and 2, the teams will have noticed that, realized that they need to make that change. And they've only got to speak to 3 other riders and potentially a DS in there. Stage number 4 for the women, Ashley Moolman-Passiel. Can anybody beat her?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, yeah, she is going well, and it's hard to kind of put it past someone of that caliber, just because, like I said, once you start to hit the hills virtually, the watts per kilo definitely come into play, and a climber is definitely going to have an advantage to try to get away. And, once you kind of have that gap over the top of a climb, it is really hard to bring that back. And again, if one rider's solo across the top of the climb, if there's a mix of teams chasing behind, are they able to communicate and kind of realize like, hey, if we work together, let's bring it back. And like I said, that's not as easy in the virtual platform as it is, out on the road.
No, not at all. Boz, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Thank you so much. Hopefully you're going to join me next week for more again. But next week, I want to challenge you to a race to the top of Mont Ventoux on Zwift. Are you up for it?
Okay, I am. I just did a 38-mile time trial outside yesterday, so that was a good test of where my power is for an hour.
But we need to work out some sort of handicap for you. Because if it's just a straight race from the start, then
okay,
you'll be waiting at the top for a long time.
Yeah, my kicker bike is actually out on loan to another Wahoo athlete, so I need to get that back before I can race you. But I would love to do that.
Let's do it, Boss. Thanks for your time, mate.
Awesome, thanks, Chris.
Cheers, dude. Great insight there from Ian Boswell. Hopefully we'll catch up with him again next week. That's pretty much it for me today. Fingers crossed it's going to be some exciting, adrenaline-fueled racing that we're going to see over the weekend. Leave your predictions down below. Let us know who you think is going to take the victory over in the women's and in the men's race. And I'll see you after the weekend with a wrap-up of everything that happened. Have a good weekend, everybody. Stay safe. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you go and buy some Wahoo products. Have a good weekend.